Chris here, certified RV technician for Unique Camping and Marine. Today we're going to be walking you through how to remove and replace sensors in your RV holding tank. We're going to be using our RV holding tank, which has been split in half, to give you better visuals as to what's actually happening throughout the process. Before we get started, I wanted to point out a resource which we have for you called lineofdoody.com. I'm there every day engaging with customers and campers. So if you have any questions or would like to speak with me directly, join me at lineofdoody.com. Let's get started. Before you get into removing any of the sensors off any of the holding tanks, it's extremely important to make sure that the holding tank which you're working on has had all of the contents removed from it. If it's the freshwater holding tank, make sure that it's empty. And if it's the gray and black water tank, it's a really good idea to make sure that it's thoroughly rinsed before getting started on the sensors. And for sure on the black water holding tank, make sure that you're wearing gloves when removing the sensors, as they are on the inside of the black water holding tank, and that will make your life a lot easier. Let's kind of take a look at what the sensors are and how they operate in general. We've got here basically a fully set up sensor, which would show 1/3 full, 2/3 full, and then this is the necessary ground right here. The different sensors run into this red thing, and what this red thing is think of it just like a wire nut. All that this thing does is it ties all 4 of these wires together to give it a path which will run back to the control board, which is inside the RV. And it runs over to this side, and this one's going to be specifically tied into the black tank. There's a blue loose wire here, which is going to be for the freshwater tank, and then a gray loose wire here, which is going to be for the gray water holding tank. And then to complete our circuit, we have the other side of the ground wire running to the control board, and all of these would tie together for each of the other additional tanks. So with that being said, let's first take a look at what it looks like to remove one of these sensors. I'm going to hit pause here and get set up with some tools. Okay, so the main tool which you're going to need for this is going to be an adjustable wrench, and it's also super helpful to have a camera on hand. Your cell phone camera will do the trick since I'm filming with it. It's a little hard to show you that, but the reason why you'll want a camera is before you take off any of these wires or nuts or anything like that, you want to take a picture of how everything's wired in there so you don't get confused when it comes to wiring everything back up. So we'll do this one down here because this is our holding tank, which has no issues whatsoever. But as you can see right here, as I'm trying to unloosen this screw, all of the wires and probably the sensor itself are twisting inside of there. I'm going to show you the inside of the tank real quick so you can see what it looks like. And there's all of our sensors again. This is the one which we're working on currently. And then back here in the back, we have the 1/3 full, 2/3 full, and full up at the top. So as we're undoing these, the sensors themselves tend to twist pretty well, but in order to get this out of here, what we need to do is remove the first nut completely, and then remove the ring terminals off of there to get the wiring out of the way. Once that's all out of the way, then you can start loosening the other screw, which tightens and expands the rubber gasket to create a watertight seal between the outside of the sensor and the inside of the sensor so the holding tank doesn't leak. Now, this is what one of the sensors looks like when it has been removed. As you can see, it's got a big kind of, kind of donut shape on the top of it from having it been crushed by the backing nut there. And so this is what's going to make it difficult to remove from the holding tank. So I'm gonna just loosen this guy up real quick, and I'm gonna get a little bit of a close-up shot inside of there for how I like to remove these. So now that we've got this undone, you can kind of see there's the nut on one side and then the washer on the other. And then I just used the same tool which I used to unthread the nut, and I tighten it down so I can get it in between the nut and the washer. And that will allow leverage so I can press against the outside of the holding tank and pop it free. And out she comes. But as you can see, we've kind of got a distorted holding tank sensor gasket now. And with the distorted, holding tank sensor gasket, it's going to be pretty much impossible to get it back inside there. I've done this from much experience without damaging that rubber bushing on there. So when it comes to replacing one of the sensors or removing them for cleaning, cleaning them is not really necessary because it's going to be far more simple to replace it with this one, which is a brand new one. And that will be so much easier than trying to jam this bulged rubber gasket back inside of the tank. And usually you'll end up damaging the bushing in general, and that's not great overall. So I just recommend replacing it with a new one every time when you pull these out. If you've got a broken sensor or you think that it's time to replace the sensor. So to reinstall the sensor back inside there, I take off one of the nuts, push it nice and easily inside there. It doesn't take a whole lot of work to get it going in there. And then you're going to want to tighten this backing nut until the bushing on the inside starts to expand. And as it starts to expand, this will no longer be able to be pushed out. I'm going to use a nut driver on this one since I've got plenty of room to work with. But let's see if I've got a good... Alright, so as you can see, as I'm tightening it down, that rubber bushing is starting to expand around the sensor head itself. And now the sensor can't be pushed or pulled out, and that's going to create a watertight seal inside of there. From there, you can reference your picture, since this one's we're only replacing the ground valve, or the ground wire sensor on this one. We're just going to put our two white ground wires back on there, like so, and then put the tightening nut back in place to sandwich the two ring terminals together, and then tighten that all down, and that is how you replace a tank sensor. All right, guys, thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next one.